Jake Morrison stared out of the small window as his ship moved toward the massive space station. The structure was bigger than anything humans had ever built. It looked like a giant crystal flower floating in space, with long arms reaching out in all directions. Each arm held different sections where alien species lived and worked together. "First time seeing the council station, Ambassador?" asked Pete Collins, the security officer standing behind him. Pete was a big man with short brown hair and kind eyes. He had been Jake's bodyguard for 3 years now. "Yes, and I hope it goes." "Better than our practice sessions back home," Jake replied with a small smile. He was 52 years old, with gray hair and a calm face that had seen many difficult meetings. Jake had spent most of his life helping countries on Earth solve their problems without fighting. The ship's communication system made a soft beeping sound. Lisa Park, their young communications officer, turned from her control panel. "Ambassador, we're getting a message from the station. They want us to dock at Section 12. "That's the diplomatic area," Pete said, checking his tablet. "Good sign. At least they're treating us like real diplomats." Jake nodded and straightened his dark blue suit. Inside his briefcase were all the documents that could change humanity's future. Earth wanted to join the Galactic Council, the group that made rules for most of the galaxy. For 200 years, humans had lived alone on their planet, not knowing that thousands of other intelligent species existed among the stars. Everything changed 5 years ago, when Earth's deep space sensors picked up alien signals. After months of careful communication, the aliens agreed to let humans send one representative to ask for membership in their council. The docking process took 30 minutes. When the doors opened, Jake saw his first real aliens. They were tall and thin, with blue-green skin that seemed to shimmer under the station's lights. Their eyes were large and golden, and they moved with slow, careful steps. "Welcome to Council Station," one of them said in perfect English, though its voice sounded like wind blowing through metal tubes. "I'm Guide Kelmer. I will show you." To the council chamber, Jake, Pete, and Lisa followed the alien through long hallways filled with amazing sights. Creatures that looked like walking trees talked with beings made of what seemed like colored gas. Small, furry aliens with 6 legs scurried past, carrying packages and documents. The air smelled of flowers and metal, a strange mix that somehow worked together. "The Council has 12 main species," Guide Kelmer explained as they walked. "Each species has different needs and abilities. We have worked together for over 800 years to keep peace in our part of the galaxy." They entered a huge round room with a dome ceiling made of clear crystal. Outside, stars sparkled like diamonds on black cloth. The room had 12 large seats arranged in a circle with a small platform in the center where speakers could stand. Jake looked around at the council members as they took their places. The largest seat held a creature that looked like a blue dragon with golden eyes and sharp teeth. This was Chancellor Vexstar, the leader of the Zephyrian species and the head of the council. "So," Chancellor Vexstar said, his voice deep and commanding, "the humans finally come to ask for our approval. Tell me, little creature, why should we let your violent species join our peaceful alliance?" Jake stepped onto the central platform, feeling small under the gaze of 12 different alien species. He had practiced this moment hundreds of times, but being here was different. These beings had traveled between stars when humans were still learning to make fire. "Honored council members," Jake began, his voice clear and steady, "humanity comes to you with respect and hope. We know we are young compared to your great civilizations. We know we have made mistakes in our past, but we have also learned from those mistakes." A creature that looked like a giant insect clicked its mandibles. "Learned? Your species still fights wars on your own planet. You destroy your environment for profit. You cannot even agree on simple things like trade rules." "That is true," Jake admitted, "but in the last 50 years we have made great progress. We have no more world wars. We work together to fix the damage we did to our planet. We have built cities in space and on other worlds in our solar system, all without fighting." The insect creature, which Jake knew was a klaxon from his briefing materials, made a chittering sound that might have been laughter. 50 years, child. My species has had peace for 3,000 years. Your progress is nothing." A being made of swirling purple gas spoke next. Its voice sounded like whispers from many people at once. The Nebulans agree with the Klaxons. Humans are too young. Too violent? They will bring war to our peaceful galaxy. Jake felt his heart beating faster, but he kept his face calm. This was going worse than even the most negative scenarios they had prepared for. He opened his briefcase and took out a data tablet. "I understand your concerns," he said, "but please, let me show you what humanity has accomplished." Jake activated. The tablet and a holographic display appeared above his head, showed images of Earth, its blue oceans and green continents, its cities and farms and forests. Wizrod. "100 years ago, we had poisoned much of our water and air. We had cut down most of our forests. But we fixed these problems. We learned to use clean energy, brought back animals that had almost died out, turned deserts into gardens, and cleaned our oceans." The hologram changed to show humans working. Together in space stations and moon bases, we've learned to live and work together, even in the harsh environment of space. We have people from every nation on Earth working side by side to explore our solar system. Chancellor Vexstar leaned forward in his massive chair. "Pretty pictures, human. But what can your species offer us? What do you bring to the galaxy besides problems?" Jake smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. This was the question he had hoped for. "We bring fresh ideas. We bring new ways of solving old problems. We bring art, music, literature, and philosophy from a world you have never seen. Most importantly, we bring the willingness to work hard and help others." He changed the holographic display again. Now it showed human doctors helping sick people in poor countries, human engineers building schools and hospitals, human scientists working to understand the universe. "We know we are not perfect," Jake said. "We know we have much to learn from all of you. But we believe that different viewpoints make everyone stronger. We want to add our voice to your council, not to cause trouble, but to help solve problems in new ways." A smaller alien that looked like a walking flower spoke in a voice like singing birds. "The Andromedans find merit in the humans' words. New perspectives can indeed be valuable." But Chancellor Vexstar's golden eyes narrowed. "Or they can be dangerous. We have seen what happens when violent species gain access to advanced technology. They use it to conquer and destroy." "Then test us," Jake said quietly. "Give us small tasks first. Let us prove that we can be trusted. We do not ask to be full members immediately. Ask only for the chance to show you who we really are." Council members began talking among themselves in their various languages. Jake could not understand the words, but the tone was not encouraging. Many of them seemed angry or dismissive. Finally, Chancellor Vexstar raised one clawed hand for silence. "We will consider your request, human. The council will deliberate for 3 days. We will wait in the diplomatic quarters until we reach our decision." Jake bowed respectfully. "Thank you for your time and consideration. I hope we can build a better future together." As Jake, Pete, and Lisa left the council chamber, Pete whispered, "That could have gone better."
Nice.
Jake replied, softly, "But it also could have gone much worse. At least they are willing to think about it." Lisa looked worried. "Did you see how they looked at us? It's like we were dangerous animals in a zoo." Jake put a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Fear often looks like hatred, Lisa. They are afraid of change. Afraid of losing control. We just have to show them that change can be good. None of them knew that in 3 days, Jake Morrison would be dead, and the galaxy would learn just how dangerous it was to underestimate humanity. Jake Morrison spent the first day in the diplomatic quarters, reading reports and preparing for more meetings. The rooms were comfortable but strange. The beds were too soft for human backs, and the lights changed colors throughout the day, too. Match different alien sleep cycles. Pete Collins checked the security systems while Lisa Park maintained communication with Earth. "Any word from home?" Jake asked Lisa as she worked at her communication console. "President Carter sends her support," Lisa replied. "The whole planet is watching the news feeds about our mission. Everyone hopes we succeed." Pete walked over from the window where he had been watching alien ships come and go from the station. "I don't like the way some of the aliens look at us when we walk through the corridors. It feels like they think we don't belong here." "They've been alone up here for centuries," Jake said. "It's natural they would be suspicious of newcomers. We just need to be patient and prove we're trustworthy." On the second day, Jake received a message asking him to attend a smaller meeting with 3 council members. They wanted to ask more detailed questions about human society and government. Jake felt hopeful. This seemed like a good sign. The meeting took place in a smaller room with only Chancellor Vexstar, the Klaxon insect representative named Hive Mind Zexka, and the Nebulan gas being called Whisper Thoughts Morden. They asked many questions about human laws, human wars, and human technology. "Tell us about your weapons," Chancellor Vexstar demanded. "What kind of military force does Earth possess?" Jake answered honestly. "We have defensive weapons to protect our world and our space colonies. We also have police forces to keep peace in our cities, but we have not fought a major war in over 50 years. Defensive weapons can become offensive weapons very quickly." Hive Mind Zexka clicked. "How do we know you will not use them against us?" "Because we are asking to join you, not fight you," Jake replied. "War would destroy everything we hope to build together." The questions continued for 3 hours. Jake felt like he was being tested, but he answered everything truthfully. When the meeting ended, the 3 aliens said they would discuss what they had learned with the full council. That evening, Pete decided to explore the station's commercial district. It was a large area where different alien species traded goods and services. Jake stayed in the diplomatic quarters to work on his speech for the final council meeting. While Lisa monitored communications, Pete walked through markets selling strange foods, beautiful crystals, and devices he could not identify. Most aliens ignored him, but some stared openly. He tried to be friendly, nodding and smiling when he made eye contact. Near a shop selling what looked like glowing fruit, Pete heard sounds of a struggle. In a narrow alley between 2 buildings, he saw 3 large Zephyrian enforcement officers, surrounding a small alien that looked like a walking flower. It was one of the Andromedans, the species that had spoken kindly about humans in the council meeting. The Andromedans were only about 3 feet tall, with delicate petals for hair, and thin arms like plant stems. This one was clearly frightened, making high-pitched musical sounds that, Pete guessed, were cries for help. The Zephyrian officers were laughing and pushing the small alien back and forth between them. One of them said something in their language that sounded like an insult. The Andromedan tried to run, but the officers blocked its path. Pete knew he should not get involved. He was on a diplomatic mission, and any incident could hurt humanity's chances of joining the council. But he could not stand by and watch someone being hurt. "Hey!" Pete called out as he walked into the alley. "What's going on here?" The 3 Zephyrian officers turned to look at him. They were each about 7 feet tall, with blue scales and muscles like professional fighters. Their golden eyes showed surprise and then anger. "Go away, human," the largest officer growled. "This is not your concern." "Looks like you're picking on someone smaller than you," Pete said, keeping his voice calm but firm. "That doesn't seem fair." The small Andromedan scurried behind Pete, still making frightened musical sounds. Pete could feel the alien's tiny hands gripping his leg. "The plant thing stole from our shop," another officer said. "We are arresting it." Pete looked down at the Andromedan, who was shaking its flower-like head and making sounds that seemed to mean no, no, no. Even without speaking the same language, Pete could tell the little alien was innocent. "Did you see it steal something?" Pete asked the officers. "We do not need to see," the first officer snarled. "Plant things are all thieves. Everyone knows." Pete felt anger rising in his chest. This was just bullying based on prejudice, the same kind of thinking that made some council members hate humans. That's not how justice works. You need evidence before you accuse someone of a crime. The largest Zephyrian officer stepped closer to Pete. "You dare tell us how to do our job? You are nothing but a primitive human who should not even be on this station." "I'm here as part of an official diplomatic mission," Pete replied, "and I'm telling you to leave this innocent being alone." What happened next was very fast. The Zephyrian officer reached for what looked like a weapon on his belt. Pete, trained in security work, reacted by instinct. He grabbed the officer's wrist to stop him from drawing the weapon and pushed him backward. The officer stumbled and fell, crashing into some containers behind him. The other two officers immediately attacked Pete. He defended himself as best he could, but he was outnumbered. Within minutes, more Zephyrian security forces arrived. Pete found himself on the ground with several aliens holding him down. The small Andromedon was gone, hopefully escaped to safety. Pete's lip was bleeding, and his shoulder hurt from being twisted behind his back. "Human attacked Zephyrian officers," one of them shouted. "Unprovoked assault on station security." Not what happened. Pete tried to explain, but no one was listening. Within an hour, Pete was in a detention cell. Jake and Lisa were allowed to visit him, but they were also questioned by station security. The story had already spread throughout the station, but it was changed in the telling. People said that a human had violently attacked 3 peaceful Zephyrian officers for no reason. "This is exactly what we feared," Chancellor Vextar announced to the emergency council session. "Humans are violent by nature. They cannot control their aggressive instincts, even in a diplomatic situation." Jake tried to explain what really happened. Pete was protecting a smaller being from bullying. He only acted in self-defense when the officers became violent. "Your human attacked our security forces." Hivemind Zexka clicked angrily. "This proves that humans cannot be trusted to follow civilized rules." "Where is the Andromedan witness?" Jake asked. "Pete was defending one of your council species. Surely that being can tell you the truth." The plant thing was too frightened to give a statement, Chancellor Vexter said with a dismissive wave of his clawed hand. "Besides, it probably would lie to protect the human who helped it." Jake felt a cold fear growing in his stomach. This was going very wrong, very fast. "Chancellor, I ask you to investigate this properly. Look at the security cameras. Interview witnesses. Don't rush to judgment. We have all the evidence we need." "Whisper thoughts," Morden said, its gas forms swirling with dark colors. "A human has committed violence on our station. It shows the true nature of your species." The council spent the rest of the day in closed session. Jake was not allowed to speak in Pete's defense or present any evidence. Lisa tried to contact Earth, but the station was now blocking their communications. That evening, Jake received the council's decision. It was worse than his worst fears. Chancellor Vextar read the judgment in the main council chamber, with cameras broadcasting to the entire galaxy. The Galactic Council finds that humanity is too violent and dangerous to be allowed membership in our peaceful alliance. Furthermore, the unprovoked attack by the human security officer proves that humans cannot be trusted to follow civilized law. Jake stood on the central platform, his heart pounding. "Chancellor, I beg you to reconsider. One incident based on a misunderstanding should not condemn our entire species. It is not one incident." Chancellor Vextar replied coldly. "It is proof of what we already knew. Humans are primitives who solve problems with violence. They are a threat to galactic peace." The Chancellor's golden eyes gleamed with something that looked like pleasure. "To send a message to other violent species who might seek to join our council, we sentence the human ambassador Jake Morrison to death for the crimes of his species." Jake felt the blood drain from his face. "You cannot do this. I have diplomatic immunity. All civilized worlds recognize the rights of ambassadors. You have no rights here, human," the Chancellor said. You represent a species that has proven itself unworthy of civilized treatment. Jake looked around the council chamber. At the alien faces watching him, some looked uncomfortable, but none spoke up for him or for justice. Fear and prejudice had won. If you do this, Jake said quietly, you will regret it. My people will not forget or forgive the murder of their ambassador. Chancellor Vextar laughed, a sound like breaking glass. What can your primitive species do to us? We rule 1,000 worlds. We have weapons that could destroy your planet with a single shot. Your threats mean nothing. Jake straightened his shoulders and looked directly into the cameras. The emergency meeting room in the United Earth government building was silent, except for the sound of breathing. 47 world leaders sat around a massive table, their faces pale with shock and anger.
Ow.
The large wall screen still showed the final image from Lisa Park's encrypted message, Jake Morrison, standing with dignity before his alien executioners. President Helen Carter stood at the head of the table. She was 60 years old, with silver hair and steel-gray eyes that had seen too much war in her younger days as a naval admiral. Her hands were steady, but everyone could see the rage burning beneath her calm surface. Ladies and gentlemen, she said quietly, they murdered our ambassador. The room erupted in angry voices. The representative from Brazil slammed his fist on the table. The woman from Japan spoke rapidly in her native language, her voice shaking with fury. The man from Nigeria stood up and demanded immediate military action. President Carter raised her hand for silence. I understand your anger. I share it. But we must think carefully about our response. This decision will affect every human being alive, and possibly every human being who will ever live. Secretary of State Karen Wells, a thin woman with brown hair and worried eyes, stood up. Madam President, we should try diplomacy first. Perhaps we can negotiate for the release of Pete Collins and Lisa Park. We could offer a trade agreement or scientific cooperation. Many voices shouted no. At the same time, the representative from Australia spoke for many of them. They executed our ambassador under diplomatic immunity. They broadcast his murder across the galaxy like entertainment. There is no negotiating. With that kind of evil? Defense Secretary Tony Garcia was a large man with a deep voice and scars on his hands from his time as a Marine. We have 36 ships ready for immediate deployment. The orbital shipyards can produce 12 more. Within a month, our weapons are different from theirs. We might have advantages they don't expect, like Karen Wells said sharply. We know almost nothing about their military capabilities. They claim to control 1,000 worlds. Even if our ships are better, we could be outnumbered 1,000,000 to 1. Admiral Ryan Blake had been silent during the debate. He was 55 years old, with short gray hair and calm blue eyes. He had commanded Earth's space fleet for 10 years and knew their capabilities better than anyone. Now he stood up and activated a holographic display above the table. This is what we know about Council military technology, he said. The display showed images of alien ships from the diplomatic missions recordings. They use energy weapons, force fields, and large, slow-moving vessels. Their tactics appear to be based on overwhelming firepower rather than speed or maneuverability. The hologram changed to show human ships. They were smaller than the alien vessels, but sleeker and more compact. Our ships use fusion reactors that are more efficient than their power systems. Our weapons are kinetic, not energy-based. We use railguns and missile systems that might pass right through their energy shields. What about their numbers? Asked. The representative from Germany, Admiral Blake's expression was grim. They have more ships than we do, but they are spread across many worlds, keeping peace and protecting trade routes. The force defending their council station is probably only 200 or 300 ships. Only 200? Karen Wells said. We have 36 ships ready for battle. Those are terrible odds. Numbers don't tell the whole story, Admiral Blake replied. Our ships are designed for war. Well, theirs are designed for policing and intimidation. There's a big difference. President Carter looked around the room at the faces of Earth's leaders. She saw anger, fear, determination, and doubt. I want to hear from everyone. Should we negotiate or fight? The debate continued for 3 hours. Some leaders wanted to try diplomacy, offering the aliens anything they wanted in exchange for peace. Others demanded immediate military action to rescue their people and punish the council for their crimes. Finally, President Carter called for a vote. The result was 28 votes for military action, 19 votes for diplomacy. It was closer than many expected, but the decision was made. Very well, President Carter said. We will try diplomacy one more time. But we will prepare for war while we do it. Admiral Blake was already planning the fleet movements in his mind. I can have the ships ready to move in 48 hours. If we're going to do this, we need to act fast before they can bring in reinforcements. Karen Wells looked sick. What message do we send to the council? President Carter thought for a moment. We demand the immediate release of Pete Collins and Lisa Park. We demand a formal apology for the murder of Ambassador Morrison. We demand the punishment of everyone involved in violating diplomatic immunity. And we demand that the council acknowledge that their actions were wrong and illegal. And if they refuse, ask the representative from Canada, then we go to war, President Carter said simply. The message was sent through the same quantum communication system that Lisa Park had used to contact Earth. It was addressed to Chancellor Vextar and the Galactic Council. The language was formal and diplomatic, but the meaning was clear. The response came back within 6 hours. It was short and insulting. Chancellor Vextar's voice came through the speakers in the meeting room, translated by computer but still full of arrogance and contempt. The Galactic Council does not negotiate with primitive species. The human criminals Pete Collins and Lisa Park will be tried and executed as accomplices to human aggression. Any Earth vessel that enters Council space will be destroyed without warning. The galaxy will learn that we do not tolerate violence from inferior species. The room was silent when the message ended. President Carter closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them with a look of cold determination. Admiral Blake, she said, prepare the fleet for immediate departure. We gave them a chance to be reasonable. They chose war instead. Admiral Blake nodded. Yes, Madam President. I'll contact all ship commanders immediately. As the meeting broke up, Karen Wells approached President Carter. Helen, are you sure about this? We could be starting a war that destroys our entire species. President Carter looked at her old friend. Karen, they murdered Jake Morrison in cold blood. They broadcast his execution to humiliate us. They're planning to murder Pete and Lisa too. If we don't respond, every alien in the galaxy will think humans are weak and can be killed without consequences. But what if we lose? Karen asked quietly. Then we lose fighting for what's right, President Carter replied. I won't let Jake's death be meaningless. I won't let our people live in fear of alien bullies who think they can murder us whenever they want. Admiral Blake spent the next day preparing the fleet. He met with every ship commander personally, explaining the mission and what they were up against. The ships were loaded with extra ammunition and supplies. The crews were told to prepare for the possibility that they might not return home, Captain Drew. Hamilton of the heavy cruiser U.S. Liberty was one of the youngest commanders in the fleet. He was 35 years old, with brown hair and green, eyes that showed both intelligence and determination. He had fought in the asteroid belt conflicts and knew how to handle his ship in battle. Admiral, he said during the final briefing, what are our rules of engagement? Admiral Blake looked around the room at the 36 ship commanders. We are going to rescue our people and make the council pay for their crimes. We will destroy any ship that tries to stop us. We will not target civilian vessels or non-military installations. We are not conquerors. We are liberators. Commander. Sarah Martinez of the destroyer U.S. Phoenix raised her hand. What about surrender? Do we accept surrender from council forces? If they surrender, we accept it, Admiral Blake replied. But only if they surrender completely and immediately. We will not negotiate while they still have weapons pointed at us. The fleet departed Earth orbit 36 hours after the Council's insulting response. 36 human ships, carrying 12,000 crew members, set course for the Galactic Council station. The journey would take 4 days at maximum speed, as Earth grew smaller behind them. Admiral Blake sent a final message to President Carter. "We are committed now. Win or lose, the galaxy will remember that humans do not accept the murder of their diplomats. Jake Morrison will be avenged." President Carter received the message in her office, looking out at the stars that now seemed much less friendly than they had a week ago. She thought about Jake Morrison, a good man who had died trying to build bridges between worlds. She thought about Pete Collins and Lisa Park, still prisoners waiting for execution. Most of all, she thought about the future. If the fleet succeeded, humanity would take its place as a major power in the galaxy. If it failed, Earth might face destruction from alien forces that vastly outnumbered them. But there had been no choice. Some things were worth fighting for, even against impossible odds. The dignity of human life was one of them. The fleet continued toward its destination, carrying the hopes and fears of an entire world. In 4 days, the galaxy would learn whether humans were as dangerous in war as they were peaceful in diplomacy. Admiral Ryan Blake stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching the Galactic Council station grow larger on the main screen. After 4 days of travel, the human fleet had finally reached its destination. The massive alien structure looked even more impressive up close, with its crystal arms stretching out like the petals of a deadly flower. "Sensor report," Admiral Blake ordered. Lieutenant Commander Alex Chen looked up from his console. "Admiral, I'm reading 237 alien vessels in defensive positions around the station. They're arranged in 3 layers, with the largest ships closest to the station." "What types of ships are we looking at?" "Mostly energy weapon platforms, sir. It's big and slow, designed for long-range bombardment. There are also some smaller escort vessels that look faster, probably fighters or interceptors." Admiral Blake nodded. This matched what they had expected based on their intelligence reports. The alien ships were built for overwhelming firepower. It's not for the kind of close-range combat that human ships were designed for. "Communications, open a channel to all ships in the fleet." "Channel open, sir." Admiral Blake looked into the camera. That would broadcast his image to every ship in the human fleet. "This is Admiral Blake, to all vessels. In 10 minutes, we will begin our attack. Remember your training. Stay close to your wingman. Use your speed and maneuverability. Don't try to match their firepower. Instead, get close and hit them where they're weakest." He paused, thinking of Jake Morrison and the 2 humans still imprisoned. "On the station, we're here to rescue our people and show the galaxy that humans protect their own. Make every shot count." Blake out. On the Galactic Council station, Chancellor Vexstar was in the command center watching the approaching human ships on his displays. The Zephyrian leader looked confident, almost bored. Round him, alien officers from different species worked at control stations, coordinating the defense. "How many ships do the humans have?" he asked his military advisor, a Klaxon warrior named General Vexmore. 36 vessels, Chancellor. "All much smaller than our battle cruisers." Chancellor Vexstar laughed, a sound like breaking metal. 36 ships against our fleet of over 200? These humans are either very brave or very stupid. Perhaps both. Chancellor General Vexmore clicked. "We offer them one last chance to surrender."
"No,"
Chancellor Vexstar said firmly. "Let them attack first. When we destroy their fleet, no other species will dare to challenge our authority. The galaxy will see what happens to those who oppose the Council." Captain Drew Hamilton watched his tactical display as the UES Liberty moved into attack position. His ship was part of the first assault wave, along with 11 other vessels. Their job was to punch through the outer defensive line and create an opening for the heavier ships. "All stations report ready, Captain," said his second-in-command, Lieutenant Sarah Kim. "Good. Target the largest ship in the outer ring. We'll hit it with everything we have and keep moving. Don't stop to finish it off. Just damage it and move." To the next target, the human ships began their attack run at maximum speed. They moved in small groups of 3 or 4 vessels, weaving between the larger alien ships like wolves attacking a herd of elephants. The alien commanders had never seen anything like it, The first exchange of fire was shocking to both sides. The alien energy weapons lit up space with brilliant beams of colored light. But most of their shots missed the fast-moving human ships. When the human railguns fired back, their metal projectiles punched through alien shields as if they weren't. Even there, Captain Hamilton's ship shook as an alien beam weapon grazed their hull, but the damage was minor. Return fire! All railguns! Target their engines! The UES Liberty's weapons fired in rapid sequence, sending tungsten projectiles at incredible speed toward the alien battleship. The shots hit the target's rear section, tearing through armor and causing explosions deep inside the enemy vessel. Direct hits on target, Lieutenant Kim reported. Enemy ship is losing power and falling out of formation. All around the battlefield, similar scenes were playing out. The human ships were smaller and carried fewer weapons, but they were faster and harder to hit. More importantly, their kinetic weapons were penetrating alien defenses that had been designed to stop energy attacks. On the council station, Chancellor Vexstar was no longer looking confident. What's happening out there? How aren't our ships destroying the humans? General Dexmore was clicking his mandibles rapidly, a sign of stress among his species. Their weapons are different from anything we've seen before, Chancellor. They're using solid projectiles instead of energy beams. Our shields are designed to deflect energy, not physical impacts. Then order our ships to move closer. Use our superior numbers to overwhelm them. But the alien ships were too big and slow to catch the human vessels. When they tried to close the distance, the human ships simply moved away and continued firing. From longer range, the aliens found themselves in the frustrating position of being unable to use their main advantage. Admiral Blake watched the battle from his command ship, staying back with the heavy cruisers and destroyers. The first wave of human ships had done their job perfectly, disrupting the alien formation and creating gaps in their defensive line. Second wave, begin your attack run, he ordered. Target the command ships in the middle defensive ring. Captain Maria Santos of the heavy cruiser U.S. Independence led the second wave. Her ship was larger and more heavily armed than the first wave vessels, designed for sustained combat rather than hit-and-run attacks. Take us right through the center of their formation, she told her helmsman. Maximum speed, all weapons ready. The UES Independence and her escorts plowed into the confused alien fleet like a hammer hitting glass. The alien ships tried to focus their fire on the new threats, but the human vessels were already among them, firing at point-blank range. Captain Santos watched as her ship's main railgun fired directly into the bridge of an alien command vessel. The tungsten projectile traveled so fast that it passed completely through the enemy ship and hit another vessel behind it. 2 for 1, her weapons officer cheered, but the aliens were learning. Some of their commanders began to adapt their tactics, using their smaller escort ships to try to ram the human vessels. A few alien captains even managed to get lucky shots that damaged human ships. The destroyer U.S. Phoenix took a direct hit from 3 alien ships firing at once. Captain Rebecca Torres felt her ship shudder as the energy beams overloaded their shields and burned through the hull. Damage report, she called out. Hull breach on deck 7. We've lost 2 railgun turrets. Engine power down to 60%. Captain Torres gritted her teeth. Her ship was hurt, but still fighting. Target that cluster of enemy ships. Going down, we're taking some of them with us. The Phoenix continued fighting, even as more alien ships focused their fire on the damaged human vessel. But before they could finish her off, the UES Thunder and UES Lightning moved in to protect their wounded sister ship. Their guns blazing, the battle continued for 2 hours. Human ships darted in and out of the alien formation, striking hard and fast before moving away. Alien vessels tried to use their superior numbers, but they couldn't coordinate effectively against the human tactics. Slowly, the tide turned in humanity's favor. The alien defensive lines were broken and scattered. Many alien ships were destroyed or too damaged to continue fighting. Others began to retreat toward the outer edges of the star system. Chancellor Vexstar watched his fleet falling apart with growing horror. This is impossible. How can 36 primitive ships defeat our entire fleet? Chancellor General Dexmore said quietly, I recommend we surrender. We've lost over half our ships. The humans will reach the station soon. Never. Chancellor Vexstar roared. I will not surrender to inferior beings. What are all remaining? Ships to protect the station at all costs. But there were not many ships left to follow that order. Admiral Blake's fleet had carved through the alien defenses like a sword through paper. Now the surviving human ships were regrouping for the final assault on the station itself. Admiral Blake opened communications to the Council Station. This is Admiral Ryan Blake of the United Earth Fleet. Your defensive fleet has been defeated. Surrender now and release our people, or we will take the station by force. Chancellor Vexstar's voice came back full of rage and disbelief. You cannot defeat us. We rule 1,000 worlds. We have weapons that could destroy your entire planet. Your weapons didn't help you today, Admiral Blake replied calmly. You have 1 hour to surrender and release Pete Collins and Lisa Park. If you refuse, we will board your station and take them by force. The communication channel went silent. On the Council Station, alien leaders who had seemed so confident a few hours ago now looked at each other with fear and uncertainty. The humans had done the impossible. They had defeated a fleet 10 times their size and were now demanding surrender. Some council members began to argue for giving the humans what they wanted. Others, led by Chancellor Vexstar, insisted on fighting to the end, but everyone could see the human ships surrounding their station, their weapons pointed at the crystal structure that had seemed so safe and powerful. Just hours before, the galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the smallest and newest member of the community could teach thee. The hour that Admiral Blake had given the council passed slowly. On the bridge of the UES Retribution, the human fleet commander watched the alien station through his main screen. The massive crystal structure was dark in many sections where power had been cut. Small ships were fleeing from the station's docking bays as aliens tried to escape before the humans boarded. Admiral Lieutenant Commander Chen reported, "We're detecting internal explosions on the station. It looks like they're destroying documents and equipment. Trying to hide evidence of their crimes," Admiral Blake said grimly. "Well, they can. Destroy all the files they want. We have our own records of what they did to Ambassador Morrison." On the Council Station, panic was spreading through the corridors. Many of the alien species that had supported Chancellor Vexstar's decision to execute Jake Morrison were now abandoning him. The Andromedon representatives had already sent a message to the human fleet, offering to help rescue Pete Collins and Lisa Park. In the council chamber, only 7 of the 12 species representatives remained. The others had fled or were trying to negotiate separate peace deals with the humans. Chancellor Vexstar stood in the center of the room, his blue scales darker than usual with rage and fear. "We still have the station's weapons." He roared at the remaining council members. "We can destroy some of their ships before they board us. And then what?" asked Whisper Thoughtsmorden, the Nebulan representative. Its gaseous form was swirling with dark colors that showed deep worry. "They will destroy the station, and all of us with it. We have lost Vexstar, accept it. I will never surrender to humans." Chancellor Vexstar snarled. "They are primitives. This defeat is impossible." But even as he spoke, reports came in that human boarding ships were approaching the station's docking bays. Now the remaining alien security forces were either surrendering or running away. No one wanted to fight the humans who had just destroyed their entire fleet. Admiral Blake led the boarding party himself, along with 200 Marines. They docked at the main diplomatic section, where Pete Collins and Lisa Park were being held prisoner. The human soldiers moved quickly through the corridors. Meeting little resistance, most of the alien guards they encountered simply dropped their weapons and raised their hands in surrender. A few tried to fight, but they were quickly overwhelmed by the human Marines who were trained for close combat. "Cell Block 7, Admiral Blake told his team as they followed the station blueprints on their portable displays. "That's where our people should be." They found Pete Collins in a small, dark cell, weak from poor food and lack of medical care. The security officer looked up in amazement as human Marines broke down his cell door. "Admiral Blake," Pete said, hardly believing his eyes. "How did you get here? What happened to the fleet?" "We won," Admiral Blake said simply, helping Pete to his feet. "Where's Lisa Park?" "2 cells down. She's hurt. They beat her when she tried to send another message to Earth." The Marines found Lisa Park unconscious in her cell. Young Communications officer had been badly treated by her alien guards, but she was alive. The human medics immediately began treating her injuries while the rest of the team secured the area. "Sir," one of the Marines reported, "we're getting surrender messages from all over the station. Most of the alien security forces are giving up. Only a few areas are still resisting." Admiral Blake nodded. "Take them to the medical bay on our ship. I have business with the Council." The Admiral and his escort made their way to the Council chamber. They found Chancellor Vexstar and 6 other alien representatives waiting for them. The Zephyrian leader was trying to look defiant, but his golden eyes showed fear. "I'm Admiral Ryan Blake of the United Earth Fleet," the Admiral announced as he entered the chamber. "By the authority of the United Earth Government, I place you all under arrest for the murder of Ambassador Jake Morrison and the illegal imprisonment of Earth citizens." "You have no authority here," Chancellor Vexstar shouted. "This is sovereign Council territory. Your sovereignty ended when you murdered our diplomat," Admiral Blake replied coldly. "You chose to start this war, and you will face the consequences." The other Council members looked at each other nervously. Finally, the small Andromedan representative spoke up in its musical voice. "Admiral Blake, the Andromedans wish to formally apologize for the actions taken against your people. We voted against the execution, but we were outnumbered." "And what about you?" Admiral Blake asked, looking at each of the remaining aliens. "Do you all support what was done to our ambassador?" One by one, the alien representatives began to distance themselves from Chancellor Vexstar's actions. The Centauri Coalition representative said his government had opposed the execution from the beginning. The Nebulon admitted that Whisper Thoughts Morden had argued for a proper investigation of the incident with Pete Collins. Soon, only Chancellor Vexstar and 2 Klaxon representatives remained silent. They had been the main supporters of executing Jake Morrison. "Very well," Admiral Blake said. "Those of you who opposed the execution will be allowed to return to your home worlds. But you will be required to send representatives to a new galactic government that will be established with proper protections for all species." "A new government?" Whisper Thoughts Morden asked, its gaseous form brightening with interest. "The old Galactic Council has proven itself unfit to rule," Admiral Blake explained. "Any organization that allows the murder of diplomats cannot be trusted to maintain peace. A new alliance will be formed with stronger laws and better protection for minority species." Chancellor Vexstar finally spoke, his voice full of hatred. "You cannot destroy 800 years of galactic civilization. The other species will never accept human rule." "We don't want to rule anyone," Admiral Blake replied. "We want justice and peace, something your council clearly couldn't provide." 2 days later, President Helen Carter arrived on the command ship UES Washington with a diplomatic team and representatives from Earth's government. The news of the human victory had already spread across the galaxy, causing shockwaves on 1,000 worlds. Many alien species that had been forced to accept council rule were now openly celebrating. The smaller, weaker species that had been bullied by the Zephyrians and their allies saw the human victory as their liberation. President Carter met with the surviving council members and the representatives of species that had come to negotiate new agreements. The meeting took place in the same chamber where Jake Morrison had been sentenced to death. "The old Galactic Council is dissolved as of today," President Carter announced. "Any species that wishes to join a new galactic alliance based on equality and justice is welcome to apply." She gestured to a memorial hologram that had been placed in the center of the chamber, showing Jake Morrison's image. "This memorial will remain here as a reminder that diplomats are protected by law, not politics. Never again will an ambassador be murdered for the crimes his government did not commit." Chancellor Vexstar was transported to Earth to stand trial for war crimes. The 2 Klaxon representatives who had supported the execution were sent to their home world in disgrace. Many other Galactic Council officials were removed from their positions and replaced by leaders who had opposed the execution. Pete Collins and Lisa Park recovered from their imprisonment and were awarded medals for their service. Pete was promoted and given command of the new diplomatic security force that would protect Earth's ambassadors throughout the galaxy. Within 6 months, over 40 alien species had applied to join the new Galactic Alliance. The human victory had inspired many worlds that had been afraid to challenge the old council's authority. Now they saw that it was possible to stand up to bullies. Even when the odds seemed impossible, the memorial station built where the old council headquarters had became a symbol of justice throughout the galaxy. Representatives from dozens of species came to pay their respects to Jake Morrison, the human diplomat who had died defending the principles of peaceful negotiation. Earth's population grew rapidly as humans spread to new worlds throughout the galaxy. But they never forgot the lessons of their first contact with alien civilization. They remembered that strength without justice was tyranny, and that the greatest victories were won not by those who conquered others, but by those who protected the innocent. Admiral Blake retired from military service and became the first human ambassador to the new Galactic Alliance. In his inaugural speech, he said, "We came to the stars seeking friendship. We found enemies instead. But through courage and determination, we turned those enemies into friends and built something better than what came before." President Carter established the Morrison Institute for Diplomatic Studies on Earth, where future ambassadors would learn not just how to negotiate, but how to stand up for what was right, even when facing impossible odds. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about underestimating humanity, but more importantly, it had learned that justice and peace were worth fighting for. No matter how small you were or how powerful your enemies seemed, Jake Morrison's death had not been meaningless. It had sparked a revolution that brought freedom and equality to species across the galaxy. Council's mistake in executing a human envoy had indeed brought the warships. Those warships had brought something even more powerful: hope.